The indie gaming scene is absolutely filled to the brim with interesting games, but it's only once in a long while that something comes along as unique as Consume Me. It's a game about the pains of growing up, sprinkled with themes of self-loathing and disordered eating. Somehow, it's also one of the funniest games I've played in ages, at least since last year's Thank Goodness You're Here, and gamifies its protagonist's life to such absurd, fourth-wall breaking degrees that it's near impossible not to play it with a smile. Jenny is a teenager and doesn't feel too good about herself. Her mom's extremely strict, she feels awkward and ugly, and has an unfortunate self-propelled notion that the only way she can get her crush to pay attention to her is by losing some weight. This is where I think it's probably reasonable to throw a warning in. Consume Me is a brilliantly silly game, but is heavily themed around a main character that develops a poor relationship with food in order to feel some sense of control around the various pieces of chaos in her life. In accordance with this theme, the game frequently puts her in situations where she's incentivized to break her diet and then punished for doing so. If these themes are, for whatever reason, not a good fit for you, I don't blame you one bit for turning off the review here. For those still with me, let's see what Consume Me has to offer. Real quick though, just a reminder that there is no taste as delicious as that warm, fuzzy feeling you get from supporting the indie content creators you hopefully love. If you like what we do, subscribe to the video and consider a Patreon membership, which will get you cool perks like early and ad-free access to our weekly podcast, Discord community access, and a shout out at the end of each and every video we produce. While the story of Consume Me unfolds from Jenny's perspective, you'll never have any direct control of her movement like in a typical RPG. And this is, in fact, an RPG with not only a huge number of possible endings, but constant choices about which skills you want to level up in order to reach your goals. But the way it chooses to unfold is one of the most unique things about it. Rather than having you control Jenny's movement, the game progresses through a series of fast-paced panels that swivel from left to right as Jenny goes about her day while always keeping an info panel of objectives, skills, and other important items in view. You're clearly seeing it in front of you right now, but even so, it's hard to drive home just how much character is infused into the game with the spastic, chaotic style. It can be bizarrely cinematic even when the artwork feels like it was done in Microsoft Paint, and the format is constantly used to fantastic effect for fun gags, like in a few cases where the panels indecisively swivel left to right to left to right as Jenny repeatedly hits snooze on her alarm clock to delay going to school. Many of these panels are interactive, as you might expect from a video game, but while the bones of this game are firmly rooted in RPG progression, the moment-to-moment gameplay is more easily comparable to WarioWare. At any given moment during Consume Me, you'll be thrust into a minigame that could take as long as a minute to complete or as little as a few seconds. Some require a certain amount of strategy, like slotting Tetris-shaped food pieces on Jenny's tray to cover up all of her hunger spots lest her guts stat go down and eventually subject her to a late-night snack attack. Others might just be silly, janky little distractions, like the aerobics minigame that presents a version of Jenny with comically elongated limbs trying to hit specific spots with her hands and head using the left analog stick. One of my favorite minigames was the laundry one, where you have to fold all of Jenny's clothing along a particular crease in order to make the most chore money. While the number and variety of minigames here is impressive, what's more so is that all of them were fun, even if some of them start to wear out their welcome as the game approached the end of its 8-hour-ish runtime. How you do in these minigames matters too, because each one will either grant you some sort of perk, give you money for having completed chores, or make progress toward one of your mandatory goals for each chapter's week. A chapter in the life of Jenny may have goals like keeping her diet under a certain number of bites each day, bites being used in place of calories, keeping up with her academics by getting through her school study guides, or doing enough chores that she can save money to submit her college applications. These goals aren't necessarily easy either. You'll have to plan out the limited free chunks of time in Jenny's day and use them smartly while making sure her mood, energy, and guts meters don't get too low to accomplish what you need to. Taking a warm bubble bath may totally restore mood and energy, but it takes 2 full chunks of time out of your afternoon, which may be all that you have. On the other hand, buying a coffee at the corner store will give you an extra chunk of time to use, or you could forego the bath and just eat some snacks to improve your mood. But then, you might need to exercise unless you want to make use of one of your limited cheat days. What I'm getting at with all of these examples is that the way Consume Me continuously managed to weave its narrative and gameplay elements together so perfectly is incredibly impressive. It all feeds into a grander story about the weight of societal pressure on Jenny's shoulders and the volume of expectations placed on her by not just everybody in her life, but her own negative self-talk. And the way it all wraps up solidifies just how personal this story is. It's a semi-autobiographical game, and you can feel that intimate touch all throughout. Consume Me is an astonishingly funny experience, but also a deeply relatable one that manages to enhance its darker themes through humor rather than sugarcoat or glaze over them. I swear, I don't even mean to be using all these food metaphors, but they kind of work, don't they? If you do end up failing a chapter by not meeting its mandatory goals, the game's take on a failure state is a remarkably clever one. You can either restart the current day, restart the entire chapter, or level up for free and then restart the entire chapter if you want a little boost. In this way, it manages to keep from being too easy while also avoiding frustration or the loss of too much progress. Konsumi's presentation might look simple in still shots, but it's actually of tremendous benefit to the overall experience. Yes, the crudely drawn artwork isn't exactly a match for modern visual design, but the magic of it is in how expressively each character is drawn and animated. The way Jenny sees herself in the mirror before doing her makeup, or the way her mom will slide a finger along a countertop to ensure Jenny cleaned it properly, adds so much vibrant silliness to everything, even when the drawing itself is relatively basic. The soundtrack is also extremely bubbly and got stuck in my head constantly as I was making my way through the game. I truly can't think of a better way that this story could have been presented, and that's a huge win for Konsumi because it takes a lot of big swings and lands basically all of them. Konsumi is verified on Steam Deck as well and is a great fit for the device with no issues whatsoever getting it to run or with the controls or performance. I could talk a bunch more about my favorite minigames in Konsumi, its interesting story beats, Jenny's growth throughout each chapter, and all of the moments I literally laughed out loud at, but this is a story that should really be consumed without giving too much away. It's a fantastic experience that does its core concept justice with not only great minigames and a compelling layer of strategy, but a phenomenal presentation and level of personality that most games, indie or not, would seriously struggle to match. If you're on the fence about whether this experience would be for you, potentially triggering topics aside, I'd strongly recommend you check out the game's free demo, because even if you're usually not into RPGs or not usually into slice of life storytelling, there's so much to love here that I'd be surprised if most indie gamers don't quickly embrace its rhythm as much as I did. On our scale that ranges from the dreadfully undesirable indie Krampus all the way up to the coveted golden genie lamp of approval, Konsumi manages to be one of my favorite indie games of 2025 so far and easily wins itself the golden genie lamp of approval.